My unfaithful wife pointed at the door of our mansion and screamed, "If you have any guts, get out of here!" She expected me to drop to my knees like a dog and beg for her forgiveness. After all, everything I had, the car, the house, my very position, was a gift from her family. I said nothing. I just looked at her calmly, then walked upstairs. Before her astonished eyes, I grabbed a pre-packed rucksack and actually left. She had no idea she wasn't kicking out a kept husband, but the brain, the heart, and the very helm of the entire Jimenez Transport empire. They say you shouldn't air your dirty laundry in public, but I decided to turn this family drama into a masterclass in corporate dismantling that would shake the entire transport industry to its core. And that show began 3 days later, when her arrogant father stormed into her house like a raging bull, kicking the door open and roaring in desperation. Do you have any idea what he's just done? The Jimenez family mansion was ablaze with brilliant lights, the clinking of champagne glasses echoing through every room. It was a lavish dinner to celebrate the company signing a long-term contract with the German auto parts giant Bachmann. This deal, an annual order valued at 20 million euros, was enough to make the entire Spanish transport industry green with envy at the power of the Jimenez family. My father-in-law, Salvador Jimenez, a stout but sharp-minded 68-year-old, stood at the head of the luxurious marble table, raising his crystal glass. "Friends," he boomed with a charismatic voice, "tonight we celebrate not just a contract, but proof that the Jimenez family continues to dominate the European logistics sector." The guests applauded and cheered. My father-in-law scanned the room, pausing for dramatic effect like an actor on a stage. Mr. Bachmann himself told me that our tidal scheduling system has saved them 8% in transport time, which is nothing short of a miracle in the world of logistics. I allowed myself a faint smile. That tidal scheduling system was my own meticulous creation, the result of 3 years of work. It analyzed traffic flow, weather data, and the shift patterns of Border Patrol staff to find the perfect windows for transport. This system allowed our trucks to cross European borders with almost no stops for inspection, a capability that, in the transport business, was like the Holy Grail. And I, Joaquín Alarcón, 52 years old, Chief Operating Officer of Jiménez Transport, was standing 2 steps behind my father-in-law, like a dutiful steward, refilling his glass and those of other distinguished guests. My wife, Paloma, 48, was strutting among the guests like a proud peacock in a 20,000 euro Versace suit. A new diamond necklace graced her neck, and the latest Cartier bracelet adorned her wrist. She accepted every compliment with an elegant nod, as if all these achievements were hers alone. Bachmann's German representative, a tall, blond man named Mr. Smith, was tirelessly praising our scheduling system in his broken Spanish. Mr. Alarcon's system is a work of art in the world of logistics. Our engineers say this level of precision is simply unbelievable. Salvador laughed with satisfaction. Of course, the Jimenez family never settles for mediocrity. Paloma immediately chimed in. It's the result of my constant pressure on Joaquin to innovate. You know, he can be a bit too conservative sometimes. He needs someone to give him a push. She said this without even glancing in my direction. I listened to this theater without expression, silently retreating to a corner of the table. I picked up a glass and passed it to the head of our drivers, Benito, who was standing just outside the main group. This man, my brother in all but blood for 20 years, was tall and strong, his hands covered in calluses, and his face etched with wrinkles like dry riverbeds in a desert. We clinked our glasses in silence, our eyes saying everything that words could not. Midway through the party, Paloma and her circle of wealthy friends huddled together, whispering and laughing. I accidentally overheard her gesturing towards my back. See him? My head butler. Hardworking, just a little dull. But without him, who could possibly control those brutes driving for the company? They only listen to him like a pack of tamed wild dogs. Her friends giggled. Paloma, you're terrible. But seriously, he really does look the part of a butler. Look at him, always with that long, suffering, hard-working expression. Of course, Paloma said, taking a smug sip of champagne. He should be grateful he married into the Jiménez family. By the way, I recently met a man named Emiliano. He owns a luxury pre-owned car dealership. Now, that's a real man. He gave me a bracelet from Paris yesterday. So much more romantic than this blockhead. Ooh, show us, her friends cooed, crowding around her. Next time, Paloma smiled mysteriously, I'll take you all to his dealership. You can just drive the cars off the lot. No one's watching. That dismissive tone was like a tiny needle pricking at my already numb nerves. For 20 years, I had grown accustomed to this kind of casual contempt, but tonight, that needle sank especially deep. Hearing her openly brag about her affair turned my heart to ice, and that thoughtless phrase was clearly overheard by Benito as he passed by with an empty tray. His face instantly darkened, and a coldness I had never seen before flashed in his eyes. The dinner ended at midnight as the guests dispersed. I was getting ready to drive home when Benito emerged from the shadows of the mansion and called my name. His expression was graver and more furious than I had ever seen it. Boss, he said in a low voice. That's what he and the other drivers always called me. No, senor. There's something you need to see with your own eyes. His voice dropped even lower as he practically spat the words through clenched teeth. Come with me. You'll understand when you see it. The missus, she took the 5 new trucks meant for the Germans. The new trucks? I frowned. Those refrigerated Mercedes, the custom models that cost 400,000 euros each? Benito nodded, the fury in his eyes ready to boil over. Yes, the very ones, the special trucks for hauling Bachmann's precision parts. She gave the keys to that good-for-nothing from the dealership. My heart sank. I had personally overseen the customization of those trucks for the Bachmann project. They were fitted with constant temperature and vibration control systems to ensure those priceless German parts arrived intact. The vehicles were scheduled to go into service in 3 days. They were a crucial part of the contract. Take me there, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. But Benito knew what kind of storm raged beneath that calm. At 1 in the morning, we drove to a workshop on the outskirts of the city. It was a dilapidated place, littered with abandoned car parts and stained with oil. As we neared the door, we could hear blaring music and the wild laughter of young men from inside. Through the cracks in the grimy wall, I saw 3 of our brand new company trucks, those custom Mercedes refrigerated haulers. The lights were on, and a group of men in their 20s were drinking and carousing around the vehicles. A few had even climbed onto the roofs and were dancing. This is the life, one drunk young man shouted. Brothers, this truck is bigger than my house. Who wants to try it out with me inside the trailer? They say it's warm in winter and cool in summer. Practically a 5-star mobile hotel. Benito's fists clenched until his knuckles turned white. Boss, what about the other two? They took them to show off at a bar, a young driver I'd sent to follow them whispered. One of them already has a damaged air suspension system. Someone was jumping on the truck, and the whole system just collapsed. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, but my face remained a mask of calm. Keep watching. We didn't go through the main door, instead slipping quietly around the side. Through the workshop's filthy windows, I finally saw the whole picture, and in that moment, I felt my blood run cold. The last new truck, the flagship model equipped with the most advanced cold chain system, was parked in the center of the workshop. The doors were open, the interior light illuminating a scene that filled me with a cold fury. Paloma was lying back in the driver's seat, and a man with a well-groomed beard and a flashy gold watch, Emiliano, the infamous pre-owned luxury car dealer, was leaning over, kissing her neck. Worse still, in the back, several of Emiliano's friends were trying to dismantle the cold chain compressor from the compartment. It was a core component that had taken us 2 full months to import from Germany, valued at over 100,000 euros. Damn, this thing is tough, one of the thugs grunted, banging on the compressor's protective casing with a wrench. The sound of clanging metal was excruciating. Must have some valuable parts inside. Let's crack it open and see. High-end stuff like this, the copper pipes alone are worth a fortune. Another was using a makeshift jack to try and change a tire. His technique so unprofessional, he was on the verge of damaging the expensive air suspension. It was clear they had no idea of the value of this high-tech equipment. To them, it was just parts they could strip and sell. Benito's body shook with rage, and he almost lunged forward. I grabbed his arm, signaling him to stay calm. I had seen enough. This wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a catastrophic loss for the entire company. Just then, Emiliano seemed to notice something and glanced in our direction. Even in the dim light, I could clearly see the smug smile on his face, an air of petty triumph. He opened the truck door, straightened his clothes, and sauntered out, deliberately wrapping his arm around Paloma's waist. He whistled at me. Hey, head butler, come to inspect the work? Paloma told me that from now on, any company car I like, I can use. After all, I'll soon be the new man in the Jiménez family. When Paloma saw me, she was stunned for a moment. But then her haughty expression quickly returned. She fixed her disheveled hair, her eyes full of defiance. Joaquin, following me this late at night? It seems my watchdog is very diligent. She turned to Emiliano and said, loud enough for me to hear, Darling, don't worry about him. He wouldn't dare do anything to you. If he so much as touches a hair on your head, my father will throw him out on the street tomorrow. I didn't respond to her provocation. I simply walked straight to the truck they had been dismantling, pulled out my phone, and began taking pictures without a word. Every damaged detail, every forced component, every fingerprint and scratch, I documented it all meticulously. This quiet action was more unsettling to Emiliano than any furious outburst would have been. Hey, what are you doing? He said, starting to get nervous. This is none of your business. Paloma said, I can use anything from the company. I continued my work, snapping photo after photo, simultaneously uploading the images in real time to the company server and my private email through an app on my phone. All of it would become evidence. I knew that much. When I finished, I looked up and stared at them coldly. This is company property. Professional equipment valued at 2 million euros, not your girlfriend's personal toy. Then I turned to Paloma. These trucks are designated for a German client under a legally binding contract. Damaging them constitutes a serious breach of that contract, which could result in claims of millions of euros. Emiliano sneered. Come on, old man. Don't give me that. Paloma says her father won't care about this little bit of money. What's this chump change to the Jimenez family? Stop posturing. Paloma smiled smugly. Exactly. My father pays more in taxes in a single year than these trucks are worth. Do you think this is your property? Every last screw in this company belongs to the Jimenez family. Just then, a red Ferrari screeched to a halt in front of the workshop. Paloma's friend, Luisa, scrambled out of the car, her face a mask of panic. Paloma, your father sent people to look for you. He knows about the trucks. I just came from your house. He's furious. He said you've ruined the entire Bachman project. Paloma's expression faltered. She quickly pushed Emiliano away and rushed over to Luisa. The two of them spoke in hushed tones for a few moments, and Paloma's face grew paler and paler. Finally, she turned to me, her eyes filled with hatred. You told him, didn't you? I calmly put my phone away. No, Paloma. Your own stupidity and arrogance betrayed you. She stormed towards me, practically screaming in my face. You dare tell my father? Who do you think you are, meddling in my affairs? You touch Emiliano, and you'll see what happens. I looked at her, feeling 2 decades of humiliation and anger, finally finding their release in this one moment. But my voice remained terrifyingly calm. This is my job. These trucks are for our German clients, and the damage already constitutes a serious commercial breach. As Chief Operating Officer, it is my responsibility to report this to the chairman. Paloma let out a cold laugh. Breach? So what? The company belongs to my father. The legal documents have the name Jimenez on them. What do you know? You're nothing but a high-class chauffeur. One phone call from me, and you're gone. Her words were like a knife, but they could no longer hurt me. I had already made my decision. I didn't argue further. I turned to Benito and said, documentation complete. Let's go. We've done what we needed to do. Paloma shrieked behind me. Yes, get out. Go back and wag your tail for my father like a dog. If he dares to punish me for this little thing, I'll show him what a real family scandal looks like. Emiliano and his friends erupted into raucous laughter, mocking Benito and me with the foulest of language. I turned toward my car without a backward glance, Benito trailing behind me. His face was red with fury, his clenched fists cracking. Chief, are we just going to let this go? He asked, his voice thick with disbelief. Letting them insult you like that? I opened the car door and took one last look at the group. Under the moonlight, their mocking smiles felt like a final countdown. I knew my break with the Jimenez family was now inevitable. No, Benito, I said calmly, a glint of ice in my eyes. This is just the beginning. Pack your things. Contact the brothers we can trust. 3 a.m. tomorrow. The usual place. Benito flinched. Then understanding dawned on his face, and he nodded firmly. Chief, the brothers have been waiting for this day. They've had more than enough of the Jimenez family. Then let's give them a lesson, I smiled coldly. Let's teach them what it means when the wheel of fortune turns. At 3 in the morning, I returned to the Jimenez mansion on the hill. As I opened the door, all the lights in the foyer were blazing. Paloma stood at the foot of the stairs, hands on her hips, an almost maniacal rage contorting her features. She had obviously just come from her father's house, and it clearly hadn't gone well. You dare follow me? You dare snitch to my father? Her voice was shrill enough to scratch glass. Who the hell do you think you are? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I walked to the dining table and pulled out 2 documents. One was a repair quote for the German imported cold chain equipment with an estimated loss of 100,000 euros. The other was a standard company vehicle accident report, which clearly listed all the irregular operations and potential legal consequences. You need to sign these, I said, my tone purely professional. As vice president, damage to company property requires your approval to process the insurance. Otherwise, it can only be treated as personal damage to company property, which will be deducted from your salary. Paloma didn't even glance at them, simply sweeping the documents to the floor with a flick of her wrist. The papers scattered across the marble. Her eyes burned with a wild fury. My salary? She practically shrieked. Do you know how much I make a year? 2 million euros. And you? 300,000? And that's only because my father pities you. It's not even worth a single hair on my head. She advanced on me, her face inches from mine. Who do you think you are? An outsider with no Jimenez blood? Do you really think those drivers serve you from the heart? They only obey my father's money. Without the Jimenez brand, you are nothing. You couldn't even run a miserable taxi company. I bent down and picked up the documents one by one, my movements steady, my expression impassive. This enraged her even more. Do you know that Emiliano is 100 times better than you? He has ambition, passion, and you? All you know are those damn trucks and drivers. 20 years, and you don't even have a decent social circle. Oh, right. What social circle could you possibly have? Apart from those foul-mouthed drivers who would pay any attention to a live-in son-in-law like you. My continued silence made her lose even more control. 20 years, she continued to roar, contempt flashing in her eyes. For 20 years, you've been like a dog begging for scraps. You think you're important? I'm telling you, Joaquin, you're nothing but a high-class chauffeur. A watchdog the Jimenez family adopted. One that can be replaced at any time. Finally, I straightened up and looked at her, my face a blank mask. Then why did you betray your husband, Paloma? Betray? She suddenly burst out laughing, a laugh laced with unsettling sarcasm. Do you think Emiliano is the first? Do you think I ever loved you? I married you only because my father needed someone who could handle those crude drivers. And you were the perfect tool, a replaceable part. Then why now? I asked, still calm. After 20 years, you suddenly decide this part needs to be replaced? Paloma laughed coldly, because Emiliano knows how to appreciate the real things in life. He knows how to spend money, not like you, researching those boring routes and schedules all day. Emiliano has friends, connections. He can take the company to a whole new level. By stealing company vehicles? By destroying priceless equipment? That's not stealing, she screamed. It's my right. I am the daughter of the Jimenez family. All of this is mine, including you. But now, I don't need you anymore. Emiliano will take your place, and he'll do it 100 times better. Every word was like a knife, but it didn't pierce my heart. Instead, it severed the last thread connecting me to this family. 20 years of humiliation, 20 years of contempt, 20 years of thankless work were finally coming to an end. If you have any guts, get out of here, she finally yelled, pointing at the door, her eyes full of defiance. Let's see what you can do without the Jimenez family. Will those drivers follow you? Will those clients recognize you? She took another step closer, her voice turning sharp and biting. You think that damned notebook and your pathetic scheduling techniques are something special? Without the Jimenez brand, they're worthless. You are worthless. It was in that moment that I decided This was no longer about reconciliation. It was about how to end this with dignity. I walked to the study and took a small metal box from the safe. It was my most important asset, held for years. Paloma followed, her insults and taunts trailing behind me. What? Taking your pathetic little treasures with you? Your precious notebook full of cheapskate techniques to save on tolls? She sneered. Take it. That garbage is only good for someone like you anyway. I placed the metal box in my backpack and took out my keychain, removing several keys. Paloma watched my movements, a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by scorn. Are you really leaving? Fine, go. I want to see how many days you last. When you're starving, you'll come crawling back like a dog, on your knees, begging me. I picked up my backpack and walked to the door. As I stepped out, I looked at her one last time. Paloma, that isn't a technique. It's the soul of the company. And you just strangled it with your own hands. As the door closed behind me, I heard her dialing a number. Emiliano, it's done. That annoying guy is gone. Tomorrow the company is ours. Get your suit ready, darling. You'll soon be sitting in the vice president's chair. I drove away from the luxury residential area, feeling no sadness, only a strange sense of liberation. The chains of 20 years finally broken. I knew the days ahead would be difficult, but they would also be the beginning of truly taking control of my own destiny. I headed straight for a small bar on the outskirts of the city, the Old Mariner. It was a discreet place, but it had been the secret meeting spot for me and the senior drivers for years. When I pushed the door open, it was already packed with my brothers, all waiting. Their eyes told me they had been waiting a long time. Benito was at the front, raising his glass. The chief is here. Brothers, are you ready? Over 30 burly men answered in unison, ready. I looked around the room. Some of these faces had followed me for 10 years, some for 20. They were my brothers, not just my employees. In the places the Jimenez family couldn't see, we had built real camaraderie and trust. I set down my backpack, took out the metal box, opened it, and revealed its contents. It was a letter of authorization, personally signed by Salvador 15 years ago, granting me full authority to handle the company's asset disposal and operational decisions. Back then, to evade a tax audit, he had delegated a vast amount of power to me so he could shirk responsibility when needed. He never imagined that this document would one day become the death warrant for his empire. Brothers, my voice was quiet, but everyone could hear it. The Jimenez family has always thought of us as tools, parts they can replace at any moment. Today, it's time they learn who's really holding the steering wheel. I pulled out a thick list. It contained the names of drivers whose bonuses had been recently withheld for normal wear and tear, or whose families were in urgent need of money, but the company refused to advance their salaries. The Jimenez family treats us like tools to be discarded when we're worn out, and Paloma and her new lover are trampling on our dignity. Benito took the list and slammed it on the table. Chief, whatever you say, we'll do. The brothers follow you, not because of the Jimenez name, but because you understand us, you respect us. That's right, a young driver chimed in. My father got sick, had to be hospitalized. I asked the company for a salary advance, and the finance department said it's against company policy. But you, Chief, you took money out of your own pocket so I could pay for the surgery. I'll remember that debt of gratitude for the rest of my life. Other drivers nodded in agreement, some pounding the table and shouting, Long live the chief. I motioned for them to quiet down and began to explain my plan in detail. This wasn't a simple walkout. It was a carefully designed, three-step action. First, all senior drivers will deliver a unified message. The vehicles need a safety inspection. They refuse to go out, especially the old-timers who know the special routes. Not a single one of them leaves the lot. Second, the short-haul drivers will report for duty on time, but they will follow every single traffic regulation to the letter, causing efficiency to plummet. Top speed, never over 80 kilometers. Stop for every amber light. Mandatory engine shutdown at gas stations. Third, and this is the most crucial, everyone keeps their phones on, but if the control center calls, you have only one response. Please have Director Joaquín give me instructions personally, otherwise, I don't understand. After listening, the drivers were first stunned, then they burst into applause and laughter. The plan was simple but lethal. It would completely paralyze Jiménez Transport in no time. Chief, that's brilliant, a young driver exclaimed. Those rich kids are going to lose their minds. Chief, I have another idea, another driver raised his hand. We can stop at every intersection to check the tire pressure. After all, safety first. I nodded with a smile. Good idea. Remember, everything is for safety. Doesn't the Jimenez family always say, safety first? We're just strictly following company policy. The drivers roared with laughter. I gestured for calm. Remember, this is only the beginning. Tomorrow, at 3 in the afternoon, I need all of you to keep your phones on, ready to receive instructions for phase 2. Now, go home and get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Benito raised his glass. To our own company, to our own company. Everyone roared back in unison. The sound of clinking glasses echoed through the small bar. When I left, the eastern sky was already beginning to lighten. I took a deep breath of the morning air, feeling a long-forgotten sense of freedom. It was time for the Jimenez family to pay the price, and I would be the one holding the wheel. At 6 the next morning, the central control center of Jimenez Transport descended into unprecedented chaos. The massive modern building was normally a hive of efficiency at this hour, with hundreds of employees working intently at their computers, coordinating over 300 trucks spread across Europe. The large screens displayed real-time maps of each vehicle's location, and dispatchers constantly issued orders through their headsets. But today, nearly all the green dots on the screens had turned red, indicating vehicles that hadn't started or weren't moving as planned. Normally, at least 60 heavy-duty trucks would have already started their engines, preparing to depart for various parts of Spain or even international routes. But today, the parking lot was silent. Not a single vehicle in motion. The phones in the control center were ringing off the hook. It was all anxious clients, demanding to know where their cargo was. Paloma rushed into the control center, obviously having just woken up. Her makeup hastily applied, her hair still slightly disheveled. The moment she entered, she was stunned by the scene. The hall was filled with anxious employees, some yelling into their phones, others staring blankly at their computers, a few with their heads in their hands in despair. At the main control panel, her father Salvador was furiously dialing one phone number after another, but he was clearly getting no satisfactory answers. His face was livid, the veins on his forehead bulging. What is going on? Where are the trucks? And the drivers? Paloma said, a hint of panic in her voice. Salvador slammed the phone down and glared at his daughter with a murderous expression. No one is answering my calls. Not a single one. 32 senior drivers, all unreachable. The rest say their vehicles need inspection, or that they're waiting for Joaquin's instructions. Do you have any idea what this means? Paloma opened her mouth, but didn't know how to respond. Just then, Salvador's phone rang. He snatched it up. Hello? Benito? Where are you all? Why aren't the vehicles leaving? On the other end of the line, Benito's voice was respectful. President, it's not that I'm not listening to you. It's just that Director Joaquin set a rule before he left. For safety, he must personally confirm the dispatch information. I'm afraid I'll make a mistake and cause a loss for the company. You know how demanding those clients are. Any small error will lead to complaints. What rule? I'm the president. My order is absolute, Salvador roared, his face so red it looked as if it might burst at any moment. Yes, President. Benito's tone remained respectful, but with an undercurrent of feigned reluctance. But you know, these German clients, they're particularly demanding. They specifically requested that Director Joaquin handle the dispatch. If he isn't here, they might refuse payment, claiming breach of contract. This is for the good of the company. Besides, those special routes, the checkpoints, only Director Joaquin can manage them. We wouldn't dare make those decisions on our own. Salvador nearly crushed the phone in his hand. He whirled on his daughter, a fury in his eyes that could have burned her. Where is your husband? Paloma stammered, the gravity of the situation suddenly dawning on her. We had an argument. He moved out for a while. Moved out? Salvador's voice shot up. Everyone in the control center turned to look. Do you have any idea how many orders we have to ship today? 2 million euros worth of Bachmann parts have to reach the port of Barcelona today. If we're delayed, we face a penalty of 50,000 euros an hour. Dad, don't worry, Paloma said, trying to sound reassuring. We can find other drivers. Other drivers? Salvador was practically screaming now, his eyes bulging with rage. Who do you think planned these special routes? Who secured the free passage points? Who negotiated the green light corridors at the border crossings? Who can handle the cargo that needs special treatment? It's all Joaquin, he advanced on his daughter, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. Do you know why Bachmann chose us? It wasn't because of our price. It was because we can deliver goods from Germany to anywhere in Spain in 48 hours, while other companies need 72. Joaquin built that time difference over 20 years, piece by piece. Every route, every checkpoint, every gas station, he organized it all with absolute precision. For the first time, Paloma felt a chill of real fear. She had never imagined Joaquin was so vital to the company. In her eyes, her husband had always been just a diligent employee, a cog in the machine that could be replaced at any time. But we have a dispatch system, don't we? She argued weakly. All the routes are in the computer, right? Salvador let out a humorless laugh. The computer? You think those special routes would be logged in an open system? That the itineraries built on bribes would leave an electronic trail? You foolish girl. The most crucial routes, the networks of contacts, they are all in Joaquin's head, and in that mysterious notebook of his. Paloma's mind flashed to the metal box and the notebook, and her face grew pale. Just then, the phones in the control center began to ring, one after another, client after client, all calling to ask where their merchandise was. With every call, Salvador's face grew darker. Find Joaquin, he finally ordered his daughter. his tone leaving no room for argument. Whatever it takes, he needs to be back here today, or you will face the consequences. Paloma nodded hastily, pulled out her phone, and dialed Joaquin's number. It went straight to voicemail. She bit her lip, forced to confront a terrible reality. She had made a fatal mistake. A dispatcher ran toward them, breathless. President, a rookie driver is stuck in the old town. He took an 18-meter trailer down an alley that only allows for 5-meter vehicles. The whole street is blocked. The traffic police are there now. Salvador's brow furrowed. Why did he take that route? Isn't that an area Joaquin specifically marked as off limits? Yes, but the new driver said he didn't know. No one told him. He said Director Joaquin usually assigns the routes personally. Salvador took a deep breath, trying to contain his rage. Send someone to sort it out. Now. The dispatcher shifted uncomfortably. We've already sent someone, but that route requires special permits to enter. We don't have Joaquin's signature. The traffic police won't let our tow truck in. They said unless Joaquin goes there personally to negotiate. Salvador could hold back no longer. He snatched a folder from the table and hurled it violently to the floor. Find Joaquin, now, immediately. Meanwhile, in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, I stood before a massive physical model. It occupied the center of the room, the core of the dispatch system I had meticulously built over 15 years. In this digital age, such an old-fashioned model might seem obsolete, but it held advantages no computer could match. Only I could understand its full meaning. It wasn't just little flags representing vehicles. There were various special markers. A tiny liquor bottle indicated a route that required a gift for a certain official. A red cross meant the man in charge of a checkpoint knew me and would turn a blind eye. A small star signified a gas station owner who offered our drivers extra discounts. There were even sections of road marked in different colors, representing the optimal transit windows at different times of day. This was an operating system that no outsider could ever decipher. The crystallization of 20 years of relationships and experience forged on the road. There was no instruction manual, no user guide. All the information existed only in my head and on this model. Benito and several of my most senior drivers stood beside me, listening as I detailed the plan for the coming days. All long-haul drivers will refuse to leave today, claiming their vehicles need safety inspections. I pointed to the red flags on the model, which represented our most important long-distance transport routes. The short-haul drivers will report for duty on time, but they will follow every single traffic law to the letter. Top speed never exceeds 80 kilometers per hour. Boss, what about our longtime clients? A young driver asked. Some of them have been with us for over 10 years. Send them a message, I replied. Tell them there's an internal company restructuring. Ask them to be patient, but don't reveal too much. Let them think it's just temporary chaos. Boss, I've got another idea, another young driver piped all up, a glint of excitement in his eyes. We could deliberately take the routes with height and width restrictions and then pretend to get stuck. That'll block things up for hours. Last time, Miguel's truck was wedged under that old bridge for a whole day. I nodded in approval. Good idea. Also, everyone keep your phones on. But if the control center calls, you give them only one answer. Please have Director Joaquin give me my instructions personally. Otherwise, I don't understand. Got it? Boss, what about Federico's lobsters? Benito asked, pointing to a special marker on the model. Today is the mayor of Madrid's birthday party. All the ingredients have to be delivered by 2 in the afternoon. A cold smile touched my lips. Perfect timing. Federico has always been trying to poach our clients. Now, we'll let him have a taste of their complaints. Notify all the drivers responsible for seafood transport. Today, as it happens, all of their vehicles have broken down. Benito grinned, revealing a set of yellowed teeth. Boss, the Jimenez family is going to take a huge loss on this one. Federico is an old man with a temper hotter than gunpowder. Last time a driver was half an hour late, he nearly slashed all the truck's tires. Exactly, I said, my smile widening. And he and Salvador have never gotten along. They went head to head at the last Chamber of Commerce election. Salvador won, but Federico has been looking for revenge ever since. This time, he'll be convinced Salvador is sabotaging him on purpose. Two old foxes tearing at each other's throats. And we'll be there to pick up the pieces. Brilliant, boss. Truly brilliant. As we were talking, a young driver rushed in, his face alight with excitement. Boss, you won't believe what happened. The company sent a rookie to deliver goods to a downtown supermarket, but he didn't know the shortcuts you planned. He's got an 18-meter trailer stuck in an alley in the old town. It's been blocked for 3 hours. The traffic police are there. It's even on the local news. Benito and I exchanged a look, and we couldn't help but laugh. An incident like this wasn't in my plan, but it would certainly heap more trouble onto Jiménez Transportes. Let him stay stuck, I said, deliberately slowing my voice. Tell him to say the vehicle has a mechanical failure, that it needs special equipment to be towed, and the technician responsible for that equipment has taken the day off. Boss, the news is all over it. The excited driver held up his phone, showing us the live feed. Look, even the former mayor is there. He says it's the stupidest traffic accident he's ever seen. On the screen, a crowd of well-dressed people pointed at the wedged truck. A reporter in a tie was speaking excitedly into his microphone. This truck, belonging to Jiménez Transportes, has been stuck in this historic neighborhood for over 3 hours. It is well known that this street only permits small vehicles, and this unfortunate driver was obviously unaware of local conditions. What's most shocking is that Jiménez Transportes has yet to send anyone to resolve the situation. What kind of management failure is this? Boss, there's something else, another driver reported, his expression more concerned. Paloma is desperate to find anyone who will take orders. She's offering triple pay, and some driver who didn't know any better accepted a load for North Africa. My expression turned serious at once. North Africa? Which route is he taking? The usual one, the driver replied. He's not using your special channel. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The North Africa route was one of our most complex and dangerous operations. That cargo typically required special handling and followed hidden paths I had carefully designed to avoid regular checkpoints. If he's on the normal route, he'll most likely be intercepted. That shipment will be confiscated, I stated calmly. Notify the others. Get ready. Jiménez Transportes is going to be in the headlines again today. I turned back to the model, pointing to a special area. Now, we begin phase 2. Benito, contact Fabricio Transport. Tell old man Fabricio I'm ready to negotiate with him. Benito started. Fabricio? But he's our biggest competitor. Boss, are you sure? He's an even craftier old fox than Jiménez. Precisely, I smiled, which means he'll be delighted to see Jiménez Transportes in trouble. And as it happens, I have a very big gift for him. Remember my letter of authorization? That is our trump card. Understanding dawned on Benito's face, his eyes widening. My God, boss. You're... That's a ruthless play. It's not ruthless, I corrected him. It's justice. For 20 years, I created hundreds of millions in wealth for the Jimenez family. In return, I received contempt and humiliation. Now, it's time to take back what is mine. I pulled out my phone and dialed Fabricio's private number. The call connected quickly, and a gruff, elderly voice answered. Hello? Who is this? Mr. Fabricio. My name is Joaquín Alarcón. I am the Director of Operations for Jiménez Transportes. There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by a low chuckle. Alarcón? Interesting. I've heard the Jimenez family is having quite a bit of trouble today. What can I do for you? I smiled, catching Benito's eye. I have a proposal that might interest you concerning all of Jimenez Transport's operational assets. All of them? Fabricio's voice sharpened. Do you have that authority? I have a letter of authorization, signed personally by Salvador Jimenez 15 years ago. If you're interested, my lawyer and I can be at your office with it in 1 hour. There was another pause, then a deep, satisfied laugh. I'll be waiting for you in my office, Alarcón. This is a very interesting development indeed. After hanging up, I turned to Benito. Contact our lawyer. We'll meet him at Fabricio's office in an hour. Then, tell all our brothers to be ready. It's time for Phase 3. The storm was about to break. And break it did. At 3 in the afternoon, an explosive piece of news rocked the entire transport industry. A Jimenez Transport truck had been stopped while crossing the North African border. Local strongmen were holding both the driver and the vehicle, demanding a ransom of 500,000 euros. The truck, it was reported, was carrying over 3 million euros worth of high-end electronics. The goods belonged to several major clients, and the delay would trigger enormous penalties. Worse, rumors began to circulate that the cargo had not been fully declared, hinting at possible smuggling. Meanwhile, the seafood magnate, Federico, arrived at the entrance of Jimenez Transportes. He pulled up in a fleet of luxury sedans, accompanied by dozens of his men, and imposingly blocked the gate. Burly and red-faced, dressed in a custom-tailored suit, he stood before the company headquarters, bellowing for compensation for the massive losses caused by the failure to deliver his lobsters on time. Where is Salvador, that swindler? Federico roared. He knew how important today was. This was deliberate. He wants to ruin my reputation. His men began plastering posters on the company's gate with slogans like, Jimenez Transportes doesn't honor its word, and beware of commercial fraud. Several reporters, tipped off, quickly arrived and began filming and interviewing, creating a scene of total chaos. To make matters worse, a group of other enraged clients had also gathered in front of the company. All of their shipments were delayed. Some had even lost major business opportunities, suffering severe losses. Inside his office, Salvador was grappling with this cascade of crises, his face even grimmer than it had been that morning, his eyes shot with blood. Paloma, for her part, was desperately contacting every driver she could find, but with little success. Most either didn't answer their phones or simply gave her that same uniform reply. Please have Director Joaquin give me my instructions personally. Otherwise, I don't understand. At that moment, a ding sounded from Salvador's computer, signaling a new email. As he opened it, his face went instantly pale. It was an ultimatum from the German company, Bachmann. The subject line, blazing in red, urgent, final warning. The email's content was blunt. Because the shipment had not been delivered on time and the designated operations manager, Joaquín Alarcón, could not be contacted, Bachmann in accordance with the contract's clauses, was demanding that Jiménez Transport pay a penalty of 2 million euros and was considering terminating their business relationship. Damn it! Salvador slammed his fist on the table. Find Joaquin, whatever it takes. Paloma began to panic. Dad, I've tried. His phone is off. He's not home and none of his friends can reach him. Salvador shot his daughter a look so full of fury it could have burned her to ashes. This is all your fault. If you weren't so capricious, if you could just control your damned private life, we wouldn't be in this mess. Paloma flinched, but immediately shot back. How was I supposed to know he was so important? You never told me. You always said he was just a replaceable employee. Replaceable? Salvador let out a cold, bitter laugh. Why do you think I put up with him for 20 years? Because he knows too much. He controls too much. That bastard has been waiting for this day for a long, long time. I should have seen it coming. As father and daughter argued, Salvador's phone suddenly rang. It was the company's legal advisor. President, there is an urgent document you need to review immediately. I've just sent it to your email. Salvador opened the email. The attachment was titled Asset Lease Agreement, and a sense of foreboding washed over him. Trembling, he opened the file. It was a notarized legal document stating that Joaquín Alarcón had leased 99% of the company's operating assets, including all trucks, warehouses, and dispatch systems, to their arch nemesis, Fabricio Transports, for the symbolic price of €1 a year. And the lease was valid for 99 years. Salvador's hands began to shake as he scrolled to the end of the document. There, he saw the letter of authorization he himself had signed 15 years ago. It read clearly, Joaquín Alarcón is hereby authorized to fully manage the disposal of assets and operational decisions of the company, including but not limited to vehicles, equipment, and the use and leasing arrangements of warehouses. He immediately called the legal advisor, his voice trembling with rage. This can't be legal. I never authorized him to do something like this. The lawyer's voice was full of resignation. President, I've already consulted with 3 experts. This letter of authorization is completely valid. Back then, to avoid taxes and simplify operations, you gave him almost unlimited authority without setting any monetary limits. Legally, he truly has the right to make this decision. This is a conspiracy, Salvador roared. He deliberately waited for this exact moment. President, the lawyer's voice was very calm. From a legal standpoint, this lease agreement was signed after your daughter and Mr. Emiliano used the company vehicles. A court would likely consider this a reasonable reaction, not a pre-planned conspiracy. Salvador hung up the phone, a wave of dizziness hitting him. A sharp pain bloomed in his chest, and his breathing became difficult. He fumbled for his heart medication and swallowed 2 pills. After a moment, he looked out the window. Federico and his men were still shouting at the gate. More reporters had arrived, and the company parking lot was empty, not a single truck in sight. He didn't go to the hospital. Instead, filled with a destructive madness, he drove to his daughter's house. This was all her fault. If she hadn't fired Joaquin, if it weren't for her and that damned Emiliano, the company wouldn't be in this catastrophic mess. It was time for her to pay the price. Like an enraged bull, Salvador kicked open the door to Paloma's house. The lock shattered, fragments of wood flying as the door crashed open with a deafening bang. His face was a mask of uncontrollable fury, his eyes burning, and in his hand, he clutched the fatal lease agreement. Paloma and Emiliano, who had been cozied up on the sofa watching television, jumped at the sudden intrusion. Emiliano nearly leaped off the couch, while Paloma froze, staring at her father's almost inhuman expression. "Dad, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice trembling as she stood up. "Do you know what he's just done?" Salvador roared, his voice shaking with a rage that barely sounded human. Paloma looked bewildered. "Who? Joaquin? What could he do? He just took a few drivers with him. In a few days, when they have no money for food, they'll come crawling back." Salvador violently threw the documents onto the coffee table with such force that the glass tumblers on it jumped and shattered. "He has leased all of our operating assets, all of them, to Fabricio for 99 years, at €1 a year. Do you know what that means? Our trucks, our warehouses, our equipment, we can't use them anymore." Paloma was stunned, unable to believe what she was hearing. "That's impossible. It can't be. He doesn't have that authority." "Yes, he does." Salvador's fist slammed down on the table, shattering the glass top. "Because 15 years ago, for that damn tax problem, I gave him an almost unlimited letter of authorization. And you stupid girl, you fired him." Emiliano tried to intervene, adopting a professional tone. "Wait, I'm sure there's a solution. I know some lawyers." Salvador whirled on him, a terrifying anger in his eyes that made Emiliano instinctively take a step back. "Shut up, you useless kept man." Salvador advanced on him, his finger nearly touching Emiliano's face. "You think he was just some head driver? Half of this company's clients, especially those high-profit dirty jobs, they only recognize his signature. The additional clauses in the German contract state that the operations manager must be Joaquin, or the contract is automatically void. By firing him, you personally destroyed our biggest contract." Salvador was breathing heavily, his chest heaving. "And you know what else? Right now, that lunatic Federico is blocking the company entrance, demanding €1 million in compensation. Our truck is impounded in North Africa. They're asking for a €500,000 ransom. The Germans have sent an ultimatum demanding 2 million in penalties. And all the drivers say they are waiting for instructions from Joaquin." Paloma collapsed onto the sofa, the full weight of what she had destroyed crashing down on her for the first time. Trembling, she pulled out her phone and dialed Joaquin's number. He answered, but said nothing. "Joaquin?" Her voice was suddenly soft, laced with a sob. "Please, we need to talk. Dad is very worried. The company is in big trouble. Please come back. We can start over." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds, and then Joaquin's calm voice came through. "It's too late, Paloma. You were right. I'm just a tool. And now, this tool has found a better owner. Please." She was almost begging now. "I didn't mean it. I was just so angry that day. We can negotiate. Give you more shares, a higher position." "More shares?" Joaquin let out a cold laugh. "What can the Jimenez family offer now? Shares in an empty shell?" The line went dead. Paloma looked desperately at her father. "He won't come back? What do we do?" Salvador's gaze turned vacant. He suddenly looked much older. "We're finished. Without a fleet, without drivers, without a dispatch system, we are nothing. As of today, Jiménez Transportes is just an empty shell." Emiliano glanced between the father and daughter, then began to move stealthily toward the door. trying to slip away in the confusion. But Salvador's sharp eyes caught his movement. "Where do you think you're going, you nobody?" Salvador suddenly shouted. "This is all because of you. If you hadn't seduced my daughter, if you two hadn't stolen company vehicles, Joaquin would never have left." Emiliano held up his hands, trying to placate the furious old man. "Mr. Jimenez, calm down. We can think of a solution together." "Solutions?" Salvador gave a cold, hollow laugh. "What do you know how to do besides conning women out of their money? What else are you good for? Even that so-called used car dealership of yours, didn't you open it with stolen money?" Emiliano's expression changed, his eyes darting nervously. "You... what do you mean?" "I've had you investigated," Salvador said darkly. "How many rich women are you seducing at the same time? 5? 7? Each one thinks she's your only benefactor, never knowing you're using her money to seduce other women." Paloma stared at Emiliano in shock. "What? You have other women?" Emiliano stammered. "Darling, it's a business strategy. I need investors." "Investors?" Salvador erupted in a wild, pained laugh. "Do you consider my daughter an investor too? Did you have your eyes on the Jimenez family assets?" At that moment, Salvador's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a few seconds, and his face grew even darker. "What? The bank has frozen our accounts? Why?" On the other end, the CFO's voice was filled with panic. "President, the bank says that since our operating assets have been leased out, the company no longer has sufficient collateral to back the existing loans. They're demanding we repay all loans immediately, or they will file for bankruptcy liquidation." Salvador hung up, staring blankly at his daughter and Emiliano. The fury in his eyes had given way to utter despair. "The bank has frozen our accounts. It's over. It's all over." He walked unsteadily toward the door. Suddenly, he turned back to look at his daughter. "You know, I always thought you were my greatest pride, but you turned out to be the gravedigger of the Jimenez family." Seeing his chance, Emiliano quickly said, "Paloma, I just remembered I have an urgent matter to attend to. I'll come see you tonight, okay?" Paloma nodded distractedly, not noticing the nervous look in Emiliano's eyes or his forced smile. Her world was already collapsing, but she had yet to realize that an even greater blow was about to land. Meanwhile, across town at Emiliano's used car dealership, a chaotic scene was unfolding. A group of middle-aged women, dressed in designer brands and dripping with expensive jewelry, had gathered in front of the dealership, shouting furiously and demanding to see Emiliano. A young woman with a ponytail and thick glasses stood in the crowd, holding up her phone and live streaming the entire event. "Hello, everyone. This is your favorite gossip blogger, Anna. Today, we are live at the scene of the shared used car boyfriend drama, starring our very own transport princess. According to my sources, Mr. Emiliano here is simultaneously involved with at least 5 wealthy women, conning them out of huge sums of money and luxury cars. And his latest catch is the transport princess herself, Miss Paloma, of Jiménez Transportes." The camera panned over to several emotional women who had started comparing the gifts they'd given Emiliano. "I bought him that Ferrari," one blonde woman shrieked. "The red one, the one he parks under his apartment." "That's nothing," another woman with purple-dyed hair said dismissively. "I paid the down payment for this entire dealership and got him the business license." "I'm the most miserable one here," a third woman said through tears. "I gave him all of my late husband's jewelry, an antique watch worth €500,000. He said it would be a family heirloom. I didn't just give him money. A fourth woman chimed in. I also introduced him to my best friend, and he conned us both. The bastard dated us on the same day, wearing the same suit. At the peak of their argument, one of the women suddenly pointed at another's hair. Wait a minute. Isn't that the custom wig I bought for Emiliano? I had it specially made by a designer in Milan. He gave it to you? What wig? This is my own hair, the other woman screamed. Liar! The hairline is super realistic. I paid 30,000 euros to have that made for him. She had barely finished speaking when the two women were at each other's throats. The scene descended into chaos. One grabbed at the other's hair and pulled hard. The wig indeed came right off, sparking even more mayhem. Security guards tried to separate them, but more women joined the fray, some even pulling out pepper spray they carried in their purses. Look, her whole head is fake, one wealthy woman shouted. She's no Italian socialite. She's a cheap knockoff who's had 10 plastic surgeries. Who are you calling a knockoff? The now wigless woman shot back. Your chest? Your nose? Your chin? Which part is real? Your face looks like a custom-built computer. In the midst of the chaos, Emiliano's assistant slipped out the back door, trying to escape in a car, but he was spotted by a sharp-eyed woman. Look, it's Emiliano's lackey. He knows where Emiliano is. A group of the women immediately swarmed the poor assistant. Terrified, he went pale and instantly betrayed his boss. Emiliano is at Paloma's house, at the Jiménez mansion. The news was like a bombshell, setting off a new round of commotion. The wealthy women began organizing a convoy of cars, preparing to descend on Paloma's home. The blogger, Anna, exclaimed excitedly into her camera, "Dear viewers, it looks like our live broadcast is about to change locations. We're going to see what fascinating drama unfolds when 5 scammed, wealthy women meet one scammed transport princess. I predict tonight's ratings are going to be spectacular." The entire scene was broadcast live, spreading across social media like a virus and becoming the hottest topic of the day. The hashtags, the Jimenez family, disgrace, and Emiliano, the shared boyfriend, blazed across social media, leading the day's trends. Meanwhile, the stock of Jiménez Transportes plummeted, dropping over 60% and triggering a circuit breaker that halted trading. One by one, the banks froze their accounts and sent representatives to liquidate assets. Overwhelmed by the sudden shock, Salvador suffered another attack and was rushed to the hospital, leaving Paloma to face the imminent arrival of an army of wealthy women and a mountain of unpaid bills. As Paloma huddled on the sofa, trying to process the day's catastrophic events, the doorbell rang. Thinking it was Emiliano returning, she opened it, only to find a group of bejeweled, middle-aged women on her doorstep, their eyes burning with the fire of vengeance. "Are you Paloma?" the blonde woman at the front asked, her voice like ice. "Emiliano's new love?" Before Paloma could answer, a woman with purple hair stepped forward. "Do you have any idea that Emiliano is a con man? He's cheated all of us. And you're just his latest victim." "Wait, what?" Paloma took a step back. "What are you talking about?" "It means," a third woman said coldly, "that you think you're special. You think he loves you? No, my dear. What he loves is your family's money and status, just like he tricked every single one of us." The color drained from Paloma's face. She suddenly remembered Emiliano's abrupt departure and Salvador's earlier warnings. Everything was starting to make a terrible kind of sense. "He's not that kind of person," she defended weakly. The blonde woman let out a cold, sharp laugh. "Oh, really? Then how do you explain these?" She held out her phone, showing Paloma a series of photographs. Emiliano with different women in high-end restaurants, at vacation resorts, in lavish mansions, intimate photos with clearly visible backgrounds and dates. Look at the dates, dear, the purple-haired woman said maliciously. They're all from the last 3 months, the exact time he was with you. A wave of dizziness washed over Paloma. She gripped the doorframe, struggling to stay upright. This can't be possible. Oh, and this? Another woman produced a receipt. This is for the necklace he bought me last week, using your credit card. Paloma recognized her own signature. It was from the supplementary card she had given Emiliano. She thought he had been using it to buy her gifts. What do you want? She finally asked, her voice cracking. We want Emiliano, the blonde woman said. Tell us where he is. Paloma smiled bitterly. I wish I knew. He left half an hour ago. Said he had something urgent to do. The wealthy women exchanged a look, their disbelief clear. Just then, a gleaming Ferrari turned into the driveway. Emiliano was behind the wheel, evidently coming back for Paloma. When he saw the scene at the door, his face went pale. He slammed his foot on the accelerator, trying to escape. But the women were prepared. 2 luxury SUVs were already blocking the exit. Emiliano's Ferrari was trapped. Get him! The blonde woman screamed. The group of women surged toward the Ferrari, and the scene descended into chaos once more. This was the moment the arriving reporters and bloggers had been waiting for. The live stream viewership rocketed to 500,000. The hashtags, the Jiménez, family, disgrace, and Hatch Emiliano, the shared boyfriend, shot to the top of the national trending list. Emiliano was swarmed by the furious women, his suit torn, his hair disheveled, the image of a polished gentleman utterly shattered. He looked desperately to Paloma for help, but she only stared back at him, her eyes cold with the pain and rage of betrayal. Amid the cheers of the crowd, Emiliano was dragged by the bodyguards of several of the women into a black SUV, his Ferrari left behind. According to later reports, he was taken to one of the women's private estates for a serious talk and was forced to sign a series of repayment agreements. Paloma closed the door and leaned against the wall, feeling the foundation of her world crumble. In a single day, she had lost her husband, her lover, her company, and her reputation. The splendor of the Jimenez family seemed to have evaporated overnight. 3 days later, a completely different scene was unfolding at a new warehouse on the outskirts of the city. A simple sign hung over the entrance. Brothers Transport Cooperative. Dozens of new trucks were lined up neatly in the yard. Drivers were busy loading and unloading goods, their movements efficient and organized. I stood in the middle of it all, a walkie-talkie in my hand, conducting this symphony of logistics. Lane 3, prepare to receive the shipment from Bachman, I said into the device. Make sure you keep the temperature below 5 degrees Celsius, humidity no higher than 40%. Roger that, boss. Benito's voice crackled back. The Germans are very happy with our new setup. They say it's even more efficient than the original plan. I smiled and nodded. Tell the brothers that when this order is done, everyone gets an extra month's salary. Inside the warehouse, a whiteboard on the wall listed several new rules. 1. If a brother's family is in trouble, the company is the first to help. 2. Of the money earned, the drivers take the largest share. 3. We do not accept dishonest jobs. It was a stark contrast to the corporate culture of the Jimenez company. I walked into the office, where Fabricio, my old competitor, and now my new partner, was waiting for me. He was a man in his 60s, with a neatly trimmed white beard and eyes that sparkled with cunning. "Joaquin, you cunning old fox," he said, rising with a smile and giving me a warm hug. I never thought I'd see the day the Jimenez family was brought to its knees like this. This calls for a celebration. I smiled, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. They brought it on themselves. But is our collaboration going well? Excellent, Fabricio said, raising his glass. I never imagined I could lease so many high-quality vehicles and so much equipment at such a low price. And those clients that once belonged to Jimenez are now following us obediently. Our business volume has doubled in 3 days. That's because they know who really provides the service, I said, taking a sip of whiskey. It's not the Jimenez name. It's the people who actually do the work. Fabricio nodded. Speaking of which, are you sure you won't consider my proposal? Join my company? Be my partner? I shook my head. Thank you for the kind offer, but my mind is made up. The Brothers Transport Cooperative was created by me and these men who have followed me for years. We want to walk a different path, to build a company that truly respects every single person. Just then, there was a commotion outside. Benito opened the door, a strange expression on his face. Boss, there's a special visitor. Fabricio and I exchanged a puzzled glance, then walked out of the office. At the warehouse gate, a luxury sedan had stopped, and Paloma was getting out. She looked far more haggard, no longer the haughty princess she had once been. Her clothes were still expensive, but they were thrown on carelessly, and her hair was no longer perfectly styled. There were dark circles under her eyes. It was clear she hadn't slept well in days. She walked toward me, a look of supplication in her eyes. Joaquin, we need to talk. I glanced at Fabricio, who understood and discreetly withdrew. I gestured for Benito to take over, directing the trucks, then led Paloma into a small office. I want to explain, she said anxiously, as soon as she sat down, her tone stripped of its former arrogance, replaced by a nervous tremor. That night, I was impulsive. I didn't mean what I said. We can start over. The company needs you. Dad needs you too. I cut her off. Paloma, it's too late. You never truly respected me, or any of these brothers. We aren't tools. We aren't parts that can be replaced at any time. We are people, with blood and flesh, with families, with dignity. I know I was wrong. Tears welled in her eyes, but I could see it was an act, a trick she had used many times before. But please, just give me one more chance. Let me make it up to you. I shook my head. You still don't get it. This isn't just about you and me. It's about the soul of the entire company. In your hands, Jiménez Transport lost its original purpose. It was no longer a company with a sense of responsibility, but a tool for you to flaunt your wealth and satisfy your vanity. Paloma suddenly grew flustered, wiping away her tears. Her tone became urgent. Is this about money? How much do you want? I can give you shares. I can even have Dad consider leaving the company to you. Leaving it to me? I couldn't help but laugh. What good is that now? The company is an empty shell. Besides, I don't need your charity. Look around you. These people follow me not because of the Jimenez name, but because of mutual trust and respect. But you can't just destroy us like this. Her voice rose, regaining some of its old fire. My father has a heart condition. He's already in the hospital, Our family's reputation. My reputation. At that moment, Benito walked in. He glanced at Paloma, then turned to me. Boss, the new contract is signed. The Germans have agreed to work with us directly. They said our service is more reliable than Jiménez Transportes, and the price is more reasonable too. Paloma's face went pale. Benito ignored her and continued. By the way, Fabricio just called. He said they've officially taken control of all Jimenez assets, and he asked me to pass on that he's keeping his promise. He will give priority to hiring the people we recommend from the list. What list? Paloma asked, her voice sharp with alarm. Benito looked at her coldly. The list of people mistreated by your company. The ones whose bonuses were withheld for normal wear and tear on their trucks. The ones who were denied a salary advance when their family members fell ill. The ones who were ruthlessly abandoned after they had accidents. I nodded. Thank you, Benito. Paloma shot to her feet, the plea in her eyes replaced by fury. You planned all of this. You were already prepared. How long? A year? 2 years? No, I said calmly. You forced me to. If, for even one moment, you had treated me and these brothers as true partners, instead of tools to be trampled on at will, none of this would have happened. Paloma turned to leave, but stopped at the door. This isn't over, Joaquin. My father won't let this go. He knows a lot of people. He has connections. Benito stepped forward, holding up his hands, his fingers deformed from years of driving. He said to Paloma, Ma'am, you see money. We see the road. Joaquin has led us down a path to a new life, while you would only lead us to a dead end. He walked to the wall and personally hung a new, hand-carved wooden sign. No members of the Jimenez family or dogs allowed. Paloma turned white as a sheet and staggered out of the warehouse. Benito closed the door and turned to me. Boss, are you sure this is the right thing to do? They might retaliate. I clapped him on the shoulder. They no longer have the power to retaliate, but just in case, we still have one final step to take. Salvador lay in the special care unit of the hospital, surrounded by the quiet beeping of monitoring machines. His face was gray, his breathing shallow. The doctor said his heart was severely damaged and would require long-term treatment. His last trusted man, the CFO, Pedro, sat by his bedside, speaking in a low voice. A flicker of malice crossed Salvador's eyes. He must pay the price, he said weakly, his voice barely a whisper. Find evidence. Prove he stole our trade secrets. Then go to the police. Pedro nodded. Chairman, I'll go to his old office and search for proof. We'll bring him to justice. Not just justice, Salvador hissed, gritting his teeth. I want him ruined. I want him to spend the rest of his life in prison. Find the records of those special routes, the proof of those gray area deals, all the secrets he knows. Pedro nodded again, then hurried out of the hospital. He had no idea that his every move was under my watch. That night, I received a call from Benito. Boss, our informant reports that Pedro is searching your old office. Looks like he's trying to find some kind of proof. I smiled coldly. Let him search. It's time. Let's finish this game. The next day, I walked into the Commercial Crimes Investigation Unit myself, carrying a thick ledger. Inside, I had recorded every illegal operation Jiménez Transports had conducted over the years. Overloading trucks, bribing highway officials, aiding in smuggling, everything. These were all actions I had been forced to carry out. But now, they would become the death knell for the Jiménez family. As a witness with a tainted past, I told the investigator, I am willing to provide all the evidence to reveal the illegal acts behind Jiménez Transports. I am a victim too, forced to execute these orders. But now, I want to clear my name. Is all of this true? The investigator flipped through the ledger, his expression shifting from doubt to astonishment. If it is, this will be one of the biggest commercial crime cases in recent years. Every page is true, I said calmly. I've had enough of the lies and the darkness. It's time for the truth to come to light. You know what this means, don't you? The investigator looked at me seriously. Once the case is open, the Jimenez family will face criminal charges. Are you prepared for that? I remembered Paloma's words. You're nothing but a high-level driver. I remembered Salvador's contempt. I remembered 20 years of humiliation. I am prepared, I said firmly. Justice should have no privileges. 3 days later, the headquarters of Jiménez Transport was sealed by the police. Paloma was taken away for questioning on suspicion of serious commercial crimes. The television news was filled with images of the police raid as reporters scrambled to cover the sensational story. Jiménez Transportes is under investigation for a slew of white-collar crimes, including tax evasion, smuggling, and commercial bribery. The news anchor's voice was grave and distinct. The company's president, Salvador Jimenez, is currently hospitalized, but police have stated he will be questioned as soon as he is well enough to speak. Salvador watched it all unfold from his hospital bed, his eyes burning with a mixture of despair and rage. His empire, the kingdom he had built with his own 2 hands, had crumbled to dust in a single week. And the one to blame was none other than the son-in-law he had once trusted above all others. Images of Paloma's arrest were being broadcast nationwide. The once proud princess was now a public spectacle. Escorted by police, her hair a mess, makeup streaked down her face, utterly disheveled. The hashtag #TheEndOfJimenez was trending once more. Meanwhile, Emiliano had already fled Spain. Rumor had it he'd escaped to South America, desperate to outrun the wealthy women he'd conned and the creditors baying for his blood. But the internet is relentless. His face and his scandals had already spread across Europe like wildfire. His career was in ruins. 6 months later, on a clear afternoon, I pulled my old SUV over to the side of a mountain road. In the distance, the lights of Barcelona's port were already beginning to twinkle. Our fleet of trucks lined the highway below, a great, glowing dragon snaking through the pass. On the passenger seat sat a thermal container, a gift from Benito's wife, Pilar. Inside was my dinner, an authentic Spanish seafood paella, its rich aroma filling the cab. The walkie-talkie crackled to life. A young driver's voice, full of excitement. Boss, the final payment from Germany just came through. Drinks are on me tonight, right? I picked up the receiver, a smile on my face. Copy that. Just drive safe. Getting home in one piece is what matters most. Setting the radio down, I took a deep breath of the cool mountain air. Not far from here, the new headquarters of the Hermanos Transport Cooperative was under construction. It would be a kingdom shared by all its drivers. Every man a shareholder, every man with a voice, and every family protected. A lot had happened in those 6 months. Salvador was charged with multiple white-collar crimes. He's out on bail awaiting trial, but his health is in a steady decline. Paloma and Emiliano split. The story goes she was injured during a fight with one of his other wealthy marks, and had to go to Switzerland for facial reconstruction. As for Emiliano, he was hounded by creditors. In the end, he had no choice but to flee to South America to lay low. And Jiménez Transport is, once a titan of the industry, is now just a memory, nothing but a hollowed-out shell of a company, buried under a mountain of lawsuits. Just yesterday, I read in the paper that Paloma was sentenced to 3 years in prison, suspended for 5, and fined €1 million for money laundering and tax evasion. She was photographed rushing from the courthouse, swarmed by a pack of reporters. The once arrogant woman was now just a broken figure, shielding her face from the blinding camera flashes. Someone asked me if I felt satisfied. I thought about it for a moment. Not satisfaction, I said. Liberation. Paloma once asked me why I did it all. She never understood. A real empire isn't built on a family name or bloodlines. It's built by the hands that grip the wheel, by the brothers who have your back through thick and thin. I opened the container. A rich, savory aroma wafted out. It was Pilar's specialty, and it filled me with a warmth and satisfaction that no Michelin-starred meal ever could. Thank you, my brothers, I said quietly, raising my fork to the busy silhouettes moving among the distant lights. Thank you for showing me what a family truly is. In the distance, the sun was setting. A new day was on the horizon. And this time, we would be driving in our own direction, toward a future that was truly ours. Friends, thank you for listening to this story. I wonder, from what corner of the world are you tuning in? What time is it where you are? Please, let us know in the comments. Whether it's good morning, good afternoon, or good night, we wish you a wonderful day. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time. See you next